Hello and welcome. I'm Carolyn Winslow, and I'm an industrial organizational psychologist and researcher at the Interdisciplinary Center for Healthy Workplaces in the School of Public Health at the University of California, Berkeley. The Interdisciplinary Center for Healthy Workplaces mission is to reinvent workplaces by integrating and applying interdisciplinary sciences to achieve worker health and psychological well-being. We hope to achieve this mission by focusing our activities around 4 roles: aggregating existing scientific research and its applications, catalyzing ideas by conducting original empirical research studies, convening experts to share knowledge and collaborate, and by advising to organizations and to the public. I hope to perform the Center's aggregating and advising functions by providing a brief video introduction to a webinar I recently presented for the Work, Wellness, and Disability Prevention Institute on how to implement positive psychology exercises in organizations. Specifically, in this short video, I will introduce the concept of positive organizational psychology, briefly describe types of positive psychology activities that can be implemented in organizations, and offer some general recommendations for their application. If, after viewing this introductory video, you're interested in learning more, I invite you to view the full-length webinar I gave, which contains more detailed information on each of these topics. So, what is positive organizational psychology? What are some representative evidence-based activities, and how can these be implemented in practice? Let's start with the definition. Positive organizational psychology can be defined as the scientific study of positive subjective experiences and traits in the workplace and positive organizations, and its application to improve the effectiveness and quality of life in organizations. A variety of types of individually oriented positive organizational psychology practices have been evaluated by researchers for their ability to impact employee well-being and therefore the success of the organizations of which they are a part. The 4 positive psychology activities I cover in the full-length webinar are practicing gratitude, performing acts of kindness, engaging in job crafting, and identifying and using one's personal strengths. The first activity, practicing gratitude, essentially means acknowledging that good fortune is attributable to someone or something else. Forms of gratitude include creating gratitude lists or journals, engaging in grateful contemplation, and also directly expressing gratitude to another person in writing or during an in-person visit. All 3 forms have been shown to be effective for enhancing well-being and can be easily adapted for use in the workplace and among employees. For example, employees can keep a list of work-related things for which they're grateful, engage in grateful contemplation at or about work, or pay a so-called gratitude visit to a coworker or client. Expressing gratitude is said to promote well-being because it helps people refocus on what they have instead of what they may be lacking. Although expressions may at first feel contrived, if not part of one's regular routine, research suggests that gratitude is a mental state that can grow stronger with continued practice. Next, let's turn to the practice of kindness. Kind acts simply are actions intended to benefit others. As with gratitude, kindness can take on different forms, such as choosing to help or cooperate with another person or group, or choosing to exercise sympathy or compassion rather than a less positive response. In the workplace, acts of kindness may involve taking time to help a coworker to meet a deadline, or actively listening to a coworker who just had a conflict with her supervisor. Kind acts typically mean doing something for another person at some cost to oneself, whether it be time or energy, and research suggests that, for a variety of reasons, this kind of self-sacrifice can actually improve the well-being of the person performing those acts. The third type of workplace positive psychology activity I cover in the video is so-called job crafting. Job crafting essentially is a process used to redefine and reimagine a job in personally meaningful ways. Job crafting can be performed through so-called task, relational, and/or cognitive crafting. To summarize, task crafting means changing the number, scope, and type of job tasks one performs. Relational crafting means actively influencing the quality and/or amount of interaction with others encountered on the job. And cognitive crafting is said to be a mental exercise for altering how tasks and relationships that make up the job are perceived. Taken together, Job crafting benefits well-being by essentially turning the job one has into the job one wants. The last type of activity covered in the webinar is the identification and use of so-called personal strengths. With this activities, employees determine and seek to use and build the natural strengths or capabilities that they already possess. There are many methods for assessing personal strengths. I review 3 different popular identification tools and exercises in detail in the webinar, namely the Values in Action or VIA classification, the Clifton Strengths Finder, and the Reflected Best Possible Self exercise. All of these exercises aim to enhance well-being by allowing people to better understand and use their signature strengths versus weaknesses. At work, this exercise reflects a positive shift away from the typical paradigm of evaluating performance deficits. You'll note the 4 activities I just described are intentional, self-directed practices that are meant to be pursued and completed by individuals. However, there are a variety of ways in which organizations can promote their application and effectiveness. Accordingly, in the webinar, I suggest 5 general guidelines that organizations can follow when promoting these practices that I'll briefly review here. First, organizations are recommended to facilitate activity choice. As I explained in the webinar, positive psychology activities may not affect everyone in the same way or to the same degree. Therefore, it's important to allow employees to choose the activities based on their personal needs and preferences. Second, organizations should provide employees with the structure and support that they may need in order to perform these activities. These supports may include access to informational and instructional resources, such as access to activity completion guidelines or proprietary materials like some of the strengths identification tools that I mentioned previously. Relatively intangible organizational support, such as supervisor encouragement and involvement, may also be required, particularly for activities such as job crafting. Third, organizations would ideally measure the effectiveness of a workplace positive psychology program for impacting organizationally valued well-being outcomes, such as work engagement and job satisfaction. Resources permitting, this step is critical for evaluating the extent to which activities are having the intended positive effects. Notably, in some organizations, a consultant skilled in program evaluation may be needed for this part. Fourth, organizations should also consider soliciting qualitative feedback from those participating in the program through focus group discussions or open-ended surveys. This kind of open-ended feedback can help organizations understand how employees are experiencing the activities and what the organization can do to better support them and the program. Again, a consultant may be useful for making sure you're asking the right questions and evaluating responses appropriately. Last but not least, although the focus of this video and corresponding webinar is on individual level feelings, behaviors, and thoughts, organizations should remember to address well-being systemically through organizational policies and practices that play a vital role in promoting employee well-being. These policies and practices include those that dictate supportive management, fair pay, a manageable workload, worker autonomy, family-friendly policies, and the availability of developmental opportunities, to name a few. Put simply, organizations and individuals interested in cultivating employee well-being should remember that positive psychology activities are just one small piece of the pie. Well, there you have it. A quick introduction to implementing positive psychology exercises for employee well-being. If this video stimulated interest, I encourage you to view the full-length webinar I presented on this topic, linked below this video. Please also note the Principal Employer Quick Guide, linked below the video, which contains a summary of the guidelines presented here, as well as a list of links and resources that may be helpful to those interested in promoting the adoption of these exercises in an organization and/or practicing these exercises on their own. Thank you for your attention. On behalf of the Interdisciplinary Center for Healthy Workplaces, I hope that these materials will in some way help to promote employee well-being and the success of the organizations of which they are a part.